All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight's McKinley Street Grade Separation Project Update Meeting will begin momentarily as we allow everyone the opportunity to join us here in person and online. So again, this meeting will begin momentarily. Thank you. All right, hello, everyone. Good evening. We are offering Spanish interpretation for this meeting, so if you are joining us virtually and would like to listen to this meeting in Spanish, you may do so by finding and clicking the interpretation button there on the bottom of your screen. Thank you for joining the McKinley Street Grade Separation Project update meeting here in person, and for those joining us online via Zoom and on the phone. My name is Matt Evans, and I will serve as tonight's moderator as part of the public outreach team for this project. Joining me tonight, we have Savat Kampu, the city's public works director and city engineer. I also have with me Josh Cosper and Darren Johnson, who are both program managers for Mark Thomas, who are the city's program or project management consultant. And I also have the city's economic development department representing here is Ashley Zaragoza. As far as the agenda for tonight's meeting, this meeting will be being recorded and is going to be posted to our project website after the meeting. All attendees joining us virtually via the Zoom platform, you will have the opportunity to ask questions or comments via the Q&A button there on your screen at any time during the meeting. All attendees joining us will be muted and cameras will remain off for the entirety of the meeting. And if you are joining us here in person, we do have question cards for you to fill out and to provide to our staff. You may also submit any future questions to our project email, which is mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. Again, that's mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. For the outline and agenda for tonight's meeting, as usual, we'll start with a project overview. We'll then get into the current construction activities, including recent activities, current and future staging, recommended alternate routes, and a look ahead at future construction activities. We'll also have the city's economic development department who will highlight their business support program, before we conclude the presentation with an update on the public outreach that we've done currently and again in the future. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll open it up to answer some of your questions during a Q&A session. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead now and turn it over to Savat.
Thank you, Matt. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Let's do a quick run through of the project improvements. Here on the screen, this is the project configuration in the after condition here. Can someone click on the, here, it's in front of me, here we go. Here we go. So here is the project configuration in the after condition. As you can see, McKinley Street will be a 4-lane facility, 2 in each direction. Magnolia Avenue is on the left side of the slide, and the 91 freeway on the right side, with Sampson Avenue down the center there. In this rendering, you will see the State Route 91 to the upper right and Estelle to the lower left side. This is a view looking northwesterly of the bridge. In this view, you can see a good view of the steel network arch bridge looking westerly. So it is a lightweight structure that can be built in a staging area and moved into place overnight, which we expect to occur later this year or early next year. This is a great view looking southeasterly, where you can see some of the retaining walls. As you can see, they will have the dot pattern as previously presented. Here is a good view looking northeasterly, where you can see the McKinley Street southbound side ramp connecting to Sampson Avenue. This is a good view looking southbound over the bridge and a good close-up look. I'd like to turn it over to Josh Cosper with Mark Thomas to talk about the utilities and the early construction activities. Actually talking about funding and early construction activities. My apologies.
Thanks, Savat. See if I can operate the mic and clicker at the same time. So overall, the project still on budget. We estimate the cost to be somewhere between 125 and 128 million, for which the city has approximately 129 million for the overall project. We've been partnering with Walsh Construction, the actual contractor on the job, as well as Falcon Engineering, who's the construction management firm, to really, since the beginning, identify ways and means and methods of how we can continuously save money. I think with some of the volatility in the market and availability of materials, it kind of makes us have to be a little bit flexible and dynamic. And so some of those things we've implemented have been some design modifications that avoid the need to actually replace this 12-foot wide box culvert storm drain structure north of Sampson Avenue. Additionally, I talked about the materials. Well, concrete and cement and other materials have increased. So part of the original plan was to use a lightweight cellular concrete fill for much of the operations of the actual fill itself. In a lot of the areas, we're finding that select fill now, as it's available, is actually cheaper. So we've identified some means and methods there. And then lastly, the tieback and the MSE walls that Savat talked about that you see along the sides, we've made some modifications to that have also saved some significant amount of money. We're going to continue to do this throughout the process just to make sure, as we can identify cost savings, we're going to implement them. So what have we done since July? Well, one of the big feats here, you can see these overhead poles in yellow out there in the screen right now. Well, they no longer exist. So that was one of the things driving the early on schedules, is working with Edison to have those removed and underground. So that's been completely out of the way. Additionally, with the early on traffic control that is out there now that we'd started in July of last year, it's been an ongoing effort of improvements, ongoing signing, striping, safety measures that we implemented in August to help improve safety. And in September, we added some video detection and other measures to try to improve circulation. Something that's just this constant battle that we're working with the contractor to try to make whatever modifications we can to keep things as safe and traffic circulating as possible. So, the big exciting stuff you see out in the field, we were able to construct the easterly bridge piles. So off to the right of the screen, you see some of the drilling operations that have occurred with it. What happens is you'll drill 70, 80, 90-foot deep holes, 7-foot diameter, and then you'll drop this steel casing in that you see in this picture here. Afterwards, you see the rebar that actually goes in. This is a steel reinforcement cage that took cranes to lift it in and drop that in. I mean, it was a pretty heavy-duty operation. And I'm just going to go really fast. This was wrong button. So this was actually a picture of as the concrete's being poured in, the steel cage is being pulled out, or that steel casing's being pulled out too. So it's quite of an extensive effort. And so we've gotten the easterly tube built with what's out there now. With that said, before we get into some other exciting parts, let's do a quick fly-through of a recent drone video. There's some of the operations I was just talking about with the cranes that were out there. So, part of why we wanted to show that, it obviously still looks a lot like it did before, the construction started. But as we move forward, we have the drone videos flown every month. We have live, streaming videos that happen out there. So you're going to be able to see this, including time-lapse videos in future when the construction really starts to accelerate. But just wanted to show what we're going to present in future, and that'd be kind of some of the views that you'll see. The real stuff that you don't get to see here is what I'm going to go after, or show right now. And so what you're looking at along the top of the screen, this is a fabrication shop in Washington State where all the bridge steel is being built. And then the bottom picture, the three pictures there, it's really the backbone of the bridge. These are the steel tie girders that support the bottom of the bridge. This is a nice side view. That highlighted yellow is that steel backbone, the tie girders that I was talking about. It's an extensive amount of work that's going on. So then here's some other bridge elements, and so starting in the upper left-hand corner, the top two are the HSS braces, along with the bottom, which is the support diaphragm. This is really kind of what really gives the rigidity and flexibility of the bridge and really kind of holds it all together in one. And then in the upper right-hand corner, there's this sidewalk along the east side that actually overhangs off the side of the bridge as well. And these are brackets that are being manufactured, and they're not little tiny brackets. They're like 8-10 foot long, substantially big steel brackets. So I talked a little bit about the support diaphragm underneath. The picture to the right is a lot of what you see in a bird's eye view. And then really what I enjoy and am passionate about is at the left-hand corner, what's crazy about a bridge like this, those orange circular connections, those are some of what really holds the bridge together from kind of a connection standpoint, as well as some of the brackets you see in the welds. We're talking tens of thousands of welds and connections along the bridge to make this happen. And so quite a bit of this is happening off-site. We expect to see bridge parts coming relatively quickly into the staging area you see at the northeast corner of Sampson Magnolia, or Sampson and McKinley. So let's talk a little bit about the staging that's going to go on. This is actually the staging that I'm going to talk about now is going to be actually implemented this week. So the orange is going to be the areas that are going to be restricted, no traffic, and some of our work areas. This view in particular is Magnolia's at the bottom, McKinley runs along the center, and then Sampson's at the upper right-hand corner. And so northbound traffic is going to have one lane from Sampson or Magnolia all the way to the 91. And any access to Estelle could be done through a dedicated left turn. Access to the Parliament floor building will have a right turn pocket, very, very similar in the signalized intersection that's out there now. The driveway between Donut Star and Lucky Greek, that'll actually be temporarily reopened during this phase as well, and open to right turn movement. And then southbound traffic will have one lane from the 91 to Estelle, where it opens up to 2 lanes. If you need going southbound on the traffic, you can still access the Parliament floors via left turn, Estelle via right turn, and then Magnolia is as existing with the dual rights. As we get further to the north, this is a view of Sampson to the 91 being at the top of the screen, Sampson being along the center. McKinley kind of running up the center of the screen as well. Again, the areas in the orange are going to be restricted to traffic and our work areas. Northbound traffic is generally going to have one lane until just south of the 91 freeway, where it'll open up to 2 lanes each direction. Access to Sampson could be done via right turn or a dedicated left turn. Then southbound will similarly have one lane each direction. And any kind of access to Sampson will be through a shared through left-right. It'll be designed and programmed such that when the railroad is crossing, through traffic will stop but still allow left and right turn if necessary. The driveway between Carl's Jr. and the Quickies Car Wash will stay open as kind of a dedicated right turn as it is right now. Sampson itself will have one through lane each direction, very similar to what's out there now. And then likewise, if you need to get onto McKinley southbound, you have a dedicated left turn. And, sorry about that, go back here. And then likewise, there'll be a shared left through going eastbound that can get onto northbound McKinley. Lastly, we will still maintain a pedestrian path of travel. You can see it in blue there, what's along the east side of McKinley and the north side of Sampson crossing through the intersection. So, really, this is where you're going to see the westerly bridge piles and quite a bit of the retaining wall and fill start to go in over the next 3 to 6 months. And so we expect to implement this upcoming week, get the traffic signals cut over and all the cones and striping. And then immediately after, we'll move into 2A. And the big thing about 2A that is it involves a temporary closure to the Ewing McKinley intersection. And so what's that look like? Well, McKinley's still going to maintain the one through lane each direction. And then any traffic going eastbound right before the Ewing the property will be redirected back to Grant Street, and Darren's going to talk a little bit about the detour routes that we've been proposing and recommending throughout the project. And then, let's go back one step. Some of the major access points, in order to get to the Arco, it'll still have the McKinley driveway entrance and the Magnolia driveway entrance in place. Ewing will have the westerly driveway accessibility, and Parliament floors will have the signalized intersection that'll allow turn movements into it. So then, as soon as that is done, we'll open it up to the right, like a dedicated ability with the, I'm going to just show this. Eastbound traffic will have a limited right turn opportunity to go southbound on McKinley for Estelle. McKinley will still have one through lane each direction. And then access is really, Parliament floors, Ewing has same access points we talked about previously. The main difference is Arco While the Estelle driveway will be reopened at this point in time, the Arco driveway on McKinley will require some reconstruction there, but Magnolia will remain open as well. And so with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Darren to talk a little bit about the detour plans.
Thanks, Josh. So these slides with the detours have been presented in previous meetings. They're also on the city's project website, so I'll try to go through them rather quickly. So if you are, with all the construction activities, I wanted to just talk a little bit about how best to get to and from the project site through these detours. So if you're traveling to or from west of McKinley, we're recommending the following detour. If you're south of the railroad tracks, the best route will be to use Magnolia Avenue to connect to 6th Street and Promenade, or use I-15 to State Route 91 to McKinley. To connect to Sampson, use Radio Road from 6th Street. Then if you're north of the railroad tracks, use Radio Road from Sampson Avenue to connect to 6th Street, or use Promenade from McKinley to connect to 6th Street. You can see here we got the local road shown in the blue dash lines, and the freeways are the yellow lines. So now if you're traveling to or from east of McKinley, we're recommending the following detour. If you're south of the railroad tracks, best route would be to use Magnolia Avenue to connect to either State Route 91, Pierce, or Buchanan. And then if you're north of the railroad tracks, connect to Sampson Avenue from Buchanan. If you're traveling to or from north or south of McKinley, we recommend the following detour. If you're south of the railroad tracks, I-15 can either connect you to Hidden Valley Parkway, to McKinley Street, to Promenade, to Magnolia Avenue, coming to or from north of the project. I-15 can also connect you directly to Magnolia from the south. If you're north of the railroad tracks, connect to Sampson through Melissa Court and Mariah Circle, connect to Magnolia from Sampson to Radio to 6th Street. And then lastly, those of you on Estelle, we recommend using Grant Street as your primary connection from Magnolia, as Josh discussed previously. During the temporary closure, traffic will be directed back to Grant Street going eastbound on Estelle before Magnolia, the intersection there on Magnolia. Afterward, McKinley will be generally open to Estelle during construction. If you're south of the railroad tracks, I-15 can either connect you to Hidden Valley Parkway, to McKinley, to Promenade, to Magnolia, coming to or from north and south of the project, or from to or from north of the project, and I-15 can connect you directly to Magnolia from the south. If you're north of the railroad tracks, get to Magnolia from Promenade, I-15, or SR 91 as we previously discussed. And it's generally recommended that truck traffic not use McKinley during these phases of work because turning movements are going to be restricted for trucks at the intersections of McKinley and Sampson. So now, what will you see constructed over the next 3 to 6 months? It'll start with implementation of traffic control stages that we discussed earlier. We'll finish the westerly piles and the bridge foundation work. We'll install a city domestic water line with water effluent line and drainage improvements. With the amount of fill, you will see temporary retaining walls installed. And you can see here, there are some samples of what they'll look like in the top and lower right-hand side of the screen. These are images from similar traffic control and construction operation that's over at Hamner Avenue. And it's going on right now over the Santa Ana River in Norco. Then these phases, they will end with permanent retaining walls along the west side of McKinley and look similar to what you see in the lower left-hand corner. And then lastly, as we get closer to a bridge move later in the year, we should start to see bridge steel components shipped to the project site where it will be fabricated on site. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, and she's going to discuss the ongoing support that the city is providing to the local businesses in the area. Ashley?
Thank you so much, Darren. So good evening, everyone. Oh. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Zaragoza, and I'm an Economic Development Administrator focusing on business retention and expansion for the City of Corona Economic Development Department. So I'm here today to discuss the various business resources that are available to you at no cost. So we've previously connected with the business community here, making sure that we're keeping you up to date with the different resources. We connected at the last project meeting in spring of 2022, and we've also continued different types of phone calls, in-person visits, and emails. And last we spoke was fall 2022, and of course now today, this evening. So thank you for those that have already connected with us, and we hope that after this presentation, you're further encouraged to reach out to us so we can support you. So the first way that we can support you is through our targeted business promotion. So we've done this already with one of the businesses located in the area, which is Donut Star, which we featured in October of 2022. And this is a really great opportunity for us to give you more visibility with the community. We have a newsletter that has 12,000 plus subscribers, which we can include that are part of the Corona community. In addition, we can do targeted social media promotion. So we have different types of platforms that we utilize. And again, we want to make sure that we're getting your name out there, that we're supporting you as a City of Corona and making sure that your name is out there. From there, we also understand that there are funding opportunities that you can look into. So one includes the City of Corona specifically. We're looking at building some Corona business grants. And so this is really to support business recovery and resiliency. We'll be focusing on small businesses, which are 25 employees or fewer. And grantees will be further supported with business education and mentorship. So a really great opportunity internally. We're looking to launch this later this year in 2023. So this is something that, please connect with us, and at the end of my portion of the presentation, I'll have some contact information. But as it's available, we're happy to share this. But in addition, there are external grants and funding opportunities that you can reach into. We have the SBA and SBDC, which offer grant and financial support. We also have a partnership with the Riverside County Office of Economic Development. So they have a Business Assistance Now program, which offers, again, access to different financial opportunities, understanding, again, that it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. So this is where connecting with us, and we can help you connect with them so that they can better understand your needs, your eligibility, and be able to provide advice from there. But in addition, they also have a micro business grant program where they can offer up to $2,500. So again, understanding that there are eligibility requirements, but please connect with us because we want to make sure that if there are resources you can tap into, that you are doing so and that you can get that financial support. Finally, we do understand also there are workforce needs. So making sure that we're connecting you with the talent pool that we have here in Corona. There's a great opportunity to tap into some training funds. So if you are bringing someone on site, there is a program held by the Riverside County Workforce Development Board, which offers OJT on-the-job training. So it's 50% reimbursement for up to 480 hours when you bring on a new hire. They also can share your job postings on their CalJob site and making sure you have access to things such as labor market information and support with hiring retention. But in addition, we have something internally, which we call Live Work Corona. So live where you work where you live, go full circle in the Circle City. And it's a really great opportunity, again, to tap into the local job seekers. So as you're thinking of individuals who can come, show up on time, you have higher retention rates, we're really looking at ways of bridging that community. And again, if you're willing to join us on this, we just ask that you take the pledge to hire local, and we have a dedicated website where we are able to share those job postings. And we're really excited also because it brings an opportunity for there to be less commuters on the road because there are people, again, going local instead of outside of the city. So we're very excited as well because we're planning on hosting a job fair here in the city of Corona in spring of 2023. And again, this is a great opportunity to partner in case you have any workforce needs. So as I said, if you have any questions or if any of these resources are of interest to you, please reach out to me. Our department as a whole, we're here to support you. We're here to make sure that if we can connect you to resources that we will. This is my phone number and my email address, and I hope to hear from you. And from here, I'm going to pass it along to Savant, who's going to share some additional information.
Thank you, Ashley. All right. I figured it out. All right, let me go ahead and give you some updates on our public outreach efforts. Here's a list of the public outreach efforts that we have done so far. You can see that we've done one in November of 2020, May 2021, December 2021, and also in August of 2022. The next public outreach meeting will be sometime in the late spring of this year and will be done virtually via Zoom. So what other outreach elements have we done? We continue with the city engaging local businesses, as Ashley discussed from our Economic Development Department. And we have had over 420 people subscribe to our text program, which continues to grow monthly. We also include how to subscribe in these public broadcasts, but just text the word McKinley to 844-518-1409 to stay in the loop. We continue sending out public broadcasts and outreach notices through the city's social media and on bi-monthly basis updating on look-aheads and achievements. We also continue to monitor the project hotline and email, and we have addressed 25 questions and concerns to date so far. As a reminder, we have the interactive web-based map showing anticipated traffic detours and lane closures, which was posted on the city's website and included in these broadcasts as well. You can also view the map at mckinleyupdates.com. And lastly, we will have our routine aerial drone. As you can see, it shows the time lapse and other photography, and you saw a snapshot of it in this presentation. We're hoping to fly the same routes again and see pretty soon some structures popping up. All right. With that said, that concludes the presentation portion of this meeting, and I will turn it back to Matt to introduce the Q&A session.
Great. Thank you, Savat. As he mentioned, we are now going to transition into the Q&A portion of this meeting. If for those of you who are joining us virtually via Zoom, you can submit your questions now via the Q&A button on your screen. We will not be taking any verbal questions online or here in person. And for those who are joining us here in person, we do have question cards for our staff to collect. So if you do have additional questions, we'll have a staff member walking around to collect those. And then if you prefer to send us emails with your questions, you may also do so at our project email. That's mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. Again, mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. And then as previously mentioned, we are going to do our best to answer as many of your questions as possible. So allow us just a few seconds to process your questions, and then we'll answer it behind me live. Thank you so much. And we've already had a few questions roll in during the meeting, so we're going to go ahead and start with the first one, which is, it seems like there is a lot of congestion during the mornings and evenings along McKinley. Why isn't the city doing more to reduce congestion? And I'll pass that to Savat.
Thank you, Matt. As discussed in the presentation, we are continuously evaluating how to improve the circulation and safety throughout the project. We have installed video detection and timing adjustments to the Sampson Avenue and Estelle Street intersections to help alleviate it as much as possible. At most, we're seeing between about 5 to 10 minutes of congestion between Magnolia and the 91 freeway. And as we get into stage 1B, we will continue to monitor and make adjustments as well.
Thank you, Savat. We do have another question here regarding the budget for the project. Is the project going to stay within the approved budget? We'll pass that off to Darren.
Yes. Currently, we are projected to be under the approved budget, as was mentioned in the presentation earlier. I will continue to work with the value engineering team on ideas. We'll work with the contractor. We'll work with the construction management consultant to try to prevent any unforeseen conditions like material shortages, escalation, those types of things. And in addition, we're scheduled to expend all funds and complete project improvements long before the funding expenditure deadlines, which is a good thing.
Thank you, Darren. These questions keep rolling in, and I think the next one will be for you, Josh, which is, there doesn't appear to have been much constructed since July of this year. Why is that so?
Why do you guys always give me the hard questions? No. You know, the most important element of the project driving the schedule is the steel production and the steel fabrication. That is on schedule. You know, the other activities like the pile foundations, the utility relocations that have occurred, those are good, but it's the steel that's really the main component of this. And so the public doesn't really get to see that, as we discussed in the presentation. You know, with that said, though, I do fully expect that, or we do fully expect with this new traffic control stage moving in and where we're at in the schedule, you're going to start seeing things ramp up very, very quickly, no pun intended, with actually the fill and the retaining walls and everything else that goes with that. So you should start seeing some pretty heavy-duty production there along the west side of McKinley, starting as early as next week and predominantly into the first quarter of this year.
Thank you, Josh. Let's see. Let's jump down. How about Savat for this one regarding communication with nearby tenants and residents? Is there an on-site contact that tenants and residents can communicate with?
Yes, there will be a specific person to contact. However, there will not be a specific person to contact. However, our construction management firm, Falcon Engineering, has a project dispatch separate from the city's project hotline and email. The phone number for the dispatch is 951-582-3793. Once again, that's 951-582-3793. Please call the number and do not text the number. But if you need to write an email, the email is mckinleyproject@falcon-ca.com. Again, mckinleyproject@falcon-ca.com. We have had these passed out to the tenants on site. However, anyone that would like this contact, please include your request in these questions or reach out to the project hotline and we will provide you a digital copy of the card. But like anything though, you are always welcome to call the city because we will communicate with them as directly as possible so that you don't have to go through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Savat. We do have a question here regarding noise during construction, so I think Darren will be the best one for this one. And the question is there a way to minimize the noise during construction?
Excuse me. We are working with the contractor and also with third-party utilities as much as possible. We're trying to make sure that we identify areas where we can accelerate the schedule so we can perform night work when it's feasible and when it's safe. We did have a noise study performed as part of our environmental due diligence to ensure that our activities were within city and county noise ordinance thresholds. But with that said, we are sensitive to noise construction, that what is created with all the construction going on out there, and we will continue to work with the contractor to minimize any of the noise out there to the best we can.
Thank you, Darren. All right, Josh, got another hardball question for you. How long will the Estelle Street intersection be closed, and when do you expect it to start?
Yeah, I guess I got a little excited and through that. So the Estelle closure, we're still working with the contractor on specifics, but we see up to about 3 months maximum of this configuration. What I didn't say in that is that there'll be substantial public outreach efforts to the surrounding residents and the businesses out there, providing advance notice of specifics when that closure will start. We expect it to be early summer this year, as when we're going to implement that traffic control stage. You know, we're hoping to reduce that 3 months, and then immediately when that's done, we see up to about 6 weeks period of time of that restricted right turn movement that we talked about. Now, part of the reason why this was introduced, this is another thing I just kind of got excited and skipped over in the presentation, is by doing this, it's going to accelerate the construction work in that area by approximately 3 months. And so there's some it just allows a lot more seamless operations of the fill and the retaining walls. And so it is a benefit to those surrounding impacts because traffic would be somewhat limited into that area closer to 9 months if we didn't include this phase of construction. And so that's kind of the impetus of why that's there too.
Thank you, Josh. The next one is regarding our future bridge move. So I'll have Savat answer this one. When will the bridge move occur, and will there be any intersection closures?
We are expecting late this year to early next year to occur, and we will be done in one weekend over 2 nights between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Yes, there will be planned long weekend closures at key intersections. However, we will provide ample notifications and to the public and advance notice for any planned closures and activities.
Thank you, Savat. Let's see. The next question here I'll pass over to Darren, and it is regarding the synchronization of the lights on McKinley Street. So this person's asking, why can't something be done with the synchronization of the lights on McKinley Street?
Actually, the lights out there are actually working as intended, even though it may not necessarily seem like it. Most important thing to keep in mind is safety. So when the train comes through, it overrides the Sampson operations to ensure that traffic doesn't back up onto the tracks or pass through the train tracks. So that then impacts some of the traffic flow out there. And in addition, with the installation of the video detection, the signals adjust to the level of traffic. Like I said, it may not seem like it, but the congestion and the time between Magnolia and SR91 is between 5 and 10 minutes typically during the day. So yeah, we are synchronizing the signals out there as best we can.
Thank you, Darren. This next question will be for Savat, and maybe it's the most important question of them all. Is the project on schedule?
So as answered a few questions ago, the important elements of the project are still on schedule, which is the steel and the bridge fabrication. The project is on schedule to be completed and operated by early to mid next year.
Thank you, Savat. We have another question that has rolled in, and this one is, presumably the CM firm is using standard project management software, such as Primavera. Has the construction schedule been made public? For that, I'll toss it over to Josh.
I sense that came from a CM person. Yes, actually, we are using Primavera as the standard for that. I don't want to get into the details of Primavera, but anybody that knows anything about Primavera, the project schedule isn't like a simple one-page bar chart when you get into that. There's tons of logic ties down to each of the individual tasks, and so the overall project schedule is in the ballpark of like 50 to 60 pages. So no, that specific schedule is not made available because I don't think it'd be very helpful or beneficial to the public. What we have been doing is we have been posting look-aheads for both immediate and kind of long-term activities on the city's website, on their interactive traffic map. Additionally, you heard the look-aheads in the schedule that we discussed in here. With that said, we could look into trying to provide something a little more simple for the public to take a look at it and say, oh, I see the schedule of the main activities. But you know, right now we're trying to capture it to the best that makes sense to provide it out to the public.
Thank you, Josh. This one I think will be best for Darren, and it regards just a summary of the project. This one's asking, can you summarize why this bridge project was introduced?
Yeah, actually, there have been studies going back several years, probably back to the early 2000s, looking at safety, looking at delays out there. Currently, there's about an hour a day delay every time that the arm comes down and the traffic is stopped. and train traffic is expected to just continually increase over the years. So as we get more and more and more trains in the future, that downtime for cars, or the gates, are going to be closed for up to 4 hours a day, which will just really impact traffic out there. So to alleviate that impact of the traffic, this bridge will then take us up and over the railroad tracks, and there won't be any delays from the railroad.
Great. Thank you, Darren. All right. We're getting a lot of questions rolling in. We do have one here regarding safety on the project. So Josh, I'll have you answer this one. This one states, the traffic driving through the parking lot behind 2275 Sampson Avenue is creating a safety hazard for tenants. So it's more of a comment, but maybe you can address it.
Yeah, I've talked to the property owner multiple times about this. One of the challenges we have is that the California Vehicle Code doesn't really allow some sort of blanket enforcement for on-site private property. And so it isn't a matter of putting police out there to issue citations for this kind of activity. You know, one of the items we had tried to evaluate is taking the speed bumps that are out there and trying to enhance on them, but obviously it's not working. Some of the traffic control and signage that we had included were intended to try to slow that down and deter that. And so it's been one of our constant challenges. We've presented an idea that we've been ongoing discussions with the property owner that might help prevent that being an issue that we're still trying to work out. And that's kind of ongoing. Additionally, one thing that we would love to urge the public is please don't do that. Those that are doing this are creating this safety issue here, and there's detour routes, there's other elements that could prevent you from having to sit the 5 minutes or so that are in that congested set as you're coming up to the Sampson-McKinley intersection. And so it is something we'd urge the public to try to avoid as well. And so it's just an ongoing activity of what we're trying to do, of ideas that doesn't put the tenant and the property owners inconvenienced, but also improves safety.
Thank you, Josh. Still getting some questions rolling in here, so just give us a few moments to process them. We do have a question here. Josh, this is probably another one for you regarding what environmental studies have been conducted for this project.
Well, I'm getting all the fun ones, aren't I? So what's fun about grade separations is that they're actually statutorily exempt from the laws of CEQA. Right, so every public project that's using state funds needs to comply with CEQA, and then this project didn't have federal funds, nor was there any other kind of federal nexus, so you'd also have a NEPA overlay. With that said, we as a city didn't say, well, we're exempt from CEQA. We actually took an approach of, we studied traffic, we studied noise, we studied cultural, we studied bio. We actually did all of the technical studies that you'd normally do in a CEQA environmental document. And then we implemented almost all of the determinations into the project design. And ultimately, we filed a notice of exemption with the county and the state. And so even though we didn't have to, we wanted to make sure, from just the good stewards of the public, to study everything as if this was a non-statutorily exempt project.
Great, thank you, Josh. And we definitely want to make sure Ashley gets in on the fun here. So we did have a question I think you're best to answer. This person is just basically asking about how proactive we are right now to the businesses in the nearby area, and what efforts we are currently making.
Thank you. So to date, we've made on-site visits with flyers. We've sent emails, made phone calls to the businesses within the area to offer our services and support. We've also worked with those to date who did express interest. And we really utilize these meetings, again, to get our name out there and make the community aware that we are available. But we will continue to do outreach, whether it's in person, phone calls, emails. And again, we are happy to work with anyone who expresses interest and wants to continue working with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Savat, I think I have a question for you. This person wants to know, when are we expecting McKinley to halt to north and south traffic?
Generally, north and southbound traffic will remain open throughout the construction, other than the select closures for the long weekends or the 55-hour closures. And we'll typically tell you in advance when that will happen. Normally, you would see the concrete box girder type bridge, but because of the length of the span, it would have been required a closure to through traffic on McKinley, which we wanted to avoid from the beginning of the project. So the type of bridge that we selected is actually avoiding the closure on McKinley. So that was planned in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Savat. We are getting quite the amount of questions. So again, please give us just a few moments to process them as they are rolling in here. We have a question here regarding safety, so I think that'll be best for, let's go with Darren. This person is noting that they have lived in the area for over 10 years and never see any safety issues. Was safety a concern for the public for this project?
Again, the studies that I talked about earlier that went back to the early 2000s, there have been cases where there have been accidents, there have been pedestrian involved accidents as well as car accidents with the trains. So while maybe it doesn't appear to be a lot, the train traffic is going to increase, which in theory then would increase the number of accidents in the future. And you know, that's what we want to avoid, is any future safety impacts. Actually, as recently as just a few months ago, there was a car that actually drove up on the tracks. Thankfully, there wasn't a train coming, but there are cases where we do have accidents and safety issues going on out there that probably aren't of knowledge to everybody in the general public.
Thank you, Darren. Josh, I got this one for you, and it's regarding the new loop road that'll be built when this project is complete. And this person's asking, when will that loop road be open to traffic?
It's a good question. So it's slated to be open sometime in the middle of stage 3, which will occur sometime early next year. It'll be towards the latter end of the construction, largely when we're shifting traffic to the bridge has been moved in place and traffic is ready to go over the bridge surface while we're constructing some of the westerly half.
Thank you, Josh. Maybe, Josh, you might be able to answer this one as well, and it's regarding, actually, I think we might have answered a question regarding the environmental studies, but again, were there any time studies or environmental studies performed?
I'm not quite sure what the question's meaning with regards to time studies, but I talked quite a bit about the CEQA studies that were involved with the project. And again, it did everything a normal project would that isn't statutorily exempt. There were other studies that we've done, like with this project being in place, what's that mean to economic growth and forecasting, which it created jobs during construction. The improved circulation in the area had, it's not, substantial because the studies usually involve big regions, but they did show improved long-term economic growth. There was, with the expected congestion that would be in at grade separation that Darren talked about, I think it's over 4 hours a day. That reduction really helps with the reduction of future greenhouse gases as well. And so a substantial amount of studies went in from 2018 to now, but even before that, during the feasibility, the city had invested in several layers of project studies going back to the early 2000s as well that looked at several different means and methods of feasibility, types of different grade separations, and other components with that too. So this has been studied, and studied some more.
Thank you, Josh. We do have another question here sort of regarding the synchronization. So either Josh or Darren for this one. This one mentions that the timing of the lights when turning at McKinley and Magnolia, when driving south and attempting to turn east, the turn signal lasts 15 to 20 seconds. And this person's asking, why isn't it similar to the lights turning other directions, especially when you have the shopping center and then a bus stop within 20 feet of each other?
You know, I'll have to look into this a little bit more detail. This is a pretty specific question. You know, this is in the county jurisdiction, and so what we can especially make sure is we'll, if we haven't already, have county traffic staff meet with our city traffic staff and investigate this further. So really, that's all I have to offer on this question right now.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Let's see here. They're still rolling in. We have a question regarding a detour, and they're asking if Griffin Way is going to be used as a detour street. Darren?
Yeah, I can take that one. We didn't identify it as a specific detour route, but again, if it's just like any street, if that works for you and if that's a way that you can detour around the site, I would say, you know, to do that if there's no reason that you can't.
Thank you, Darren. Josh, we have another question for you, and it's regarding the impact to businesses for this project. So this one's asking, how does the city gauge the level of impact to businesses as compared to pre-construction versus reality?
You guys give me some really tough questions. I love it. So with that said, early on before the project, we hired a consultant that specializes in loss of business goodwill, and we also had a legal consultant that deals with this quite a bit. They had identified several businesses and other components throughout the project that we thought there would be some level of negative impact to, visibility, accessibility, during and even after construction. And so we spent quite a bit of time putting together estimates and kind of assessing how the project can be modified. With that, I was pretty knee deep in that personally, and what I can tell you is things like COVID, things like some of the other things have made it more challenging. We saw unintended or maybe unforeseen impacts, but as part of each of these business settlements that we've done, and I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I think it's north of 10 now, somewhere in the ballpark, closer to 20. We engage the business owners. We have an opportunity to actually look at their books, talk to their legal representation. They'll sometimes hire their own goodwill appraiser. We have our goodwill appraiser, and each one of these settlements takes into account the pre, during, and post-project conditions where they develop a number. And so the businesses that have filed the claims and whatnot, we have been working actively with it. On the city's website too, there's a very simple to follow table that shows the businesses that we've settled with and the businesses we're continuing to work with as well. We're getting nearly there. I think going into February, we're down to approximately one of the 4 quadrants that we still have some that we're working with on those specifics.
Thank you, Josh. And we continue to receive some questions. Again, this one is regarding businesses, so I'll let Ashley chime in. This person wants us to kind of elaborate on the protocol to address any consequences to businesses and the ability for them to adjust to correct any impacts.
Great. So previously mentioned the different resources that we have, whether that's business promotion on our social media or newsletter, making sure that we are able to connect you with financial resources if there are grants available to businesses that are in the area. And so really a great example of this, which I highlighted earlier, was when we work with Donut Star. So making sure that visibility was the first thing that was addressed. So creating an article, putting it out to the 12,000 plus subscribers that we have in the newsletter, again, hoping that we're able to continue that client outreach so that they're able to continue to get that type of clientele coming through the door, and hopefully new clientele because they're able to see it on the newsletter. So the moment that we do hear a notice of a business, and even though we are addressing all the business in the area, and I want to highlight again that we have done the door-to-door outreach, or we've tried to do some kind of contact. But with that being said, if there is one specifically, the project team is always really great about informing our team in economic development that it's occurred. So we immediately try to make contact and again offer the different resources, see what is most interest to them. In that case, it was visibility, being in the newsletter was the number one priority, and so we move forward with that. And so again, if there's something like that you'd like to work towards, then we're here and absolutely available.
Thank you, Ashley. We have another question that's rolled in regarding synchronization. This one I'll pass off to you, Savat. It states, can a no right turn on red be implemented to help current traffic congestion on all intersections impacted by the project?
Thank you. We're looking at every aspect of the traffic. It's not just our construction team, but also our traffic engineering team as well. We evaluate, we'll take your considerations here as a suggestion, but I know that we're actually out there in real time just to make sure that the traffic is functioning as safely and as quickly as possible. Even though we may have implemented something, if a new idea has come or if the traffic pattern changes, we adjust and we adapt accordingly. So just be aware that if there's any issues and concerns that you are feeling out there, please convey them to the city and we'll make those adjustments as necessary. But we're always trying to make sure that safety is the utmost priority while trying to get people through the intersection and to the businesses as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Savat. We do have some more questions rolling in here. Again, a question about the intersection at McKinley and Magnolia. This one does note, and they understand that it is a bit of a problem with people not currently obeying the traffic signals. So they kind of want us to elaborate on what we're doing, and they're asking what can be done during peak hours.
I'll jump on this one. So I'd answered earlier, we'll look into the previous concern that was noted too, and actually have the city traffic or the county traffic on site to look into this. One thing I can say, we have been actively talking to the county about kind of a concurrent or follow-up project immediately after at the intersection. The county actually owns 3 legs of the intersection in the jurisdiction. Like the northeast corner is actually the only portion the city owns. We've had ongoing talks going back to early last year with the director of transportation and working to do not only something to improve the signal and the permanent condition, but also there's even just the condition of the intersection. It could be heavily improved. It looks like it's in pretty at its design life, and so we expect to see that be a county-led project and hopefully starting construction sometime after the end of this project, and we'll do what we can with the county to address the construction activity, traffic control, and make the adjustments as Savat was talking about as well.
Thank you, Josh. I believe I might have another one here for you. This person wants to know what we are currently doing to make sure that we are all recovered after construction.
That's a good question. So I'll start from the project component because that's kind of my focus on this. So I talked about how we've engaged quite a bit of the businesses to try to identify a number that was from a temporary and a permanent impact to them and go through settlement processes. We've made a lot of good success on it. I think the intent is to try to keep as many of these tenants in place as possible, but we also have to be good stewards with the city's money, and there's stipulations that we can and can't do legally. And so, a lot of it really depends on, how the project specifically impacts. And so the project's goal is to minimize it as best as we can and make sure from a financial standpoint that it's adequately addressed as part of the settlement process. I'll turn it over, maybe Ashley, you have some ideas of kind of more from city support?
Absolutely. So one of the things I definitely want to highlight is the small business grants program that's going to be launching later this year. So the businesses in the area, because it is the city of Corona, will be eligible. So this is a great opportunity to bring in additional funds. These are grant funds, so they are not something you have to pay back. It's not a loan. So we're really excited to be able to support our small businesses through that. And we're happy to share that information as more becomes available. But in addition, we want to make sure that as you're continuing to recover and grow, that we're helping with marketing and promotion, making sure that you have that opportunity. If you're having events, if you're doing specials, again, we can do that dedicated business spotlight that also really ties into your history and who you are. And that's a really big component. What really ties the community is understanding the history that you have here and continuing that and making sure that you prosper after this, transition. And so we want to make sure that those opportunities are there. And ideally, as you're growing again and making sure that you have your workforce needs and hiring needs met, that's where we can help with our Live Work Corona platform. And it can also help with the on-the-job training, which is utilized through one of our partners. So again, that's subsidized training, making it more affordable to bring people on board. So that's just a few examples of how we're trying to support as a city the recovering of the businesses within this area.
Thanks, guys. Darren, I don't believe we've heard from you in a while, so I'll knock this question over to you. This person wants to know, what are the start and finish dates for retaining wall construction and the widening of the eastbound 91 off-ramp?
So yeah, that work should start towards the end of the spring, early summer, and it should finish by end of the year. Bulk of that work will be started in stage 1B, and it'll finish in stage 2, as Josh was talking about earlier. So early summer or spring to early summer, and then finish by the end of the year.
Thank you, Darren. Let's see, we do have quite a few more to go through, just a few actually. Let's do this one for Savat. This person wants to know, will the increased tax rate in the city of Corona be lowered after the project is paid for?
That's a tricky question. I pay taxes, and I wish I could lower my taxes as well. The project, fortunately, although it's $127 to $129 million, the city's been very, very fortunate with the help of our consultants and with the help of the city to really seek outside funding. So the city of Corona directly, our taxes here locally are not directly paying for it. So I just wanted to be very grateful for that. And but no, I wish taxes can be lowered, but I've seen taxes only go one direction, unfortunately. So thank you.
That might have been the hardest question of the night.
Thank you, Savat. Josh, this one's probably for you. This person's asking about the issue on the southeast column, and they want to know why it was necessary to break out the concrete from the newly placed hole in the ground, and is there any justification for more than 2 months in delay that this has caused?
I don't know where the 2 months delay is coming from. I talked about the schedule. Darren talked about the schedule of what is important. So when you drill and pour the concrete in these piles, part of this is a very extensive process because I talked about the construction, but immediately after, you have to make sure it's structurally, it's got the structural integrity that it needs to actually support the bridge. And so what that typically means is several different forms of testing to make sure there's no anomalies. What'll happen is sometimes as the steel casing's coming up, dirt or air pockets or other things will occur. And so it's very, very common in a pile project to have to actually core out and repair some of this to make sure that the piles are structurally capable of supporting the bridge structure. Now, this was probably a little bit more than what we would have liked on that pile, but it's not out of the norm for pile construction. We actually had something very similar on the northeast pile, and just it was a little more seamless on the repair efforts. But typically what happens is we'll identify the anomalies through this testing. We'll work with the shoring and the pile drilling, pouring engineers to identify kind of means and methods of solutions, and then actually perform the repairs. And so this is par for the course on bridge construction.
All right, thank you, Josh. It looks like as of now we do have one final question. Josh, I'll pass this right back off to you. This is regarding the old Food for Less building. So what is specifically being done on the city side to help get tenants into that old Food for Less building?
Well, I can answer from, again, what the project's doing to keep tenants, and maybe, again, Ashley can help afterwards. So from a project standpoint, we have settled with, I'm just going to do the math, I think 10 businesses in there to try to make sure they stay. Some of them include the Lucky Greek. Most recently, there's a Shaw Dentistry. Additionally, Little Caesars Pizza. And then there's other active ones we're still working with in there. And so we're doing what we can from a project standpoint to, like I said, identify what we see as an agreeable number based on books and kind of project impacts, and work with the business owners to keep them there. Now, additionally, it's now the Parliament Floors building. We talked to that property owner relatively probably once every couple of months. I think we talked to him late last year, as well as we just settled with the actual owner of the shopping center as well, from kind of a right-of-way acquisition standpoint, of kind of like being completely done, agreed, and they'll working on the final compensation. And so that's what we're doing from a project standpoint, is on property owner by property owner, business owner by business owner, is trying to preserve and keep them there. But maybe Ashley can elaborate.
Of course. So we do have a business attraction side of the house. So while I focus on business retention and expansion, I can definitely touch on some of those items. So we recently partnered with the Retail Coach, which is a retail consulting, market research, and development firm. They're currently conducting a retail market analysis and determining retail opportunities that will work, and will work with city staff to determine the best fit, not only for that location, but that entire shopping center. So we're working in partnership with the shopping centers in the area, understanding what would be the best location to locate there, and that will actually thrive and continue. And they base that off of the profile of the community, making sure that it best fits those needs. And so we're really excited to bring them on board, and it's something that they're currently in the process of, and it's something that will continue with the attraction side of the house, and making sure that we're making data-driven decisions in the area based on the community profile.
Thanks, guys. It looks like that wraps it up for our questions. We're going to go ahead and just give it maybe a minute or two to see if any additional ones roll in, and then if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up the presentation, and I'll provide everyone with an idea of how to stay connected to our project. So we'll give it about 1 to 2 more minutes, see if anything rolls in, and then again, if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up tonight's meeting. All right, thanks everyone again for joining us here in person, and again to those who are currently sitting at home, warm, joining us on Zoom. This does conclude the Q&A portion of our meeting, but we do encourage everyone to stay connected to our project and utilize the different ways that you see here on screen to stay connected to the McKinley Street Grade Separation Project. So as always, you can reach us via the project email there, mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. You can visit the project website, mckinleyupdates.com. You can call our project helpline there on the 1-800 number. And you can also text the word McKinley to 844-518-1409. And then as usual, we always like to encourage everyone to use our current interactive map that does show the latest construction alerts, current and future lane closures, and progress photos. And again, you can find that at mckinleyupdates.com. So that does conclude our meeting for this evening. Thank you and have a good night.